Location. The location of the various crimes does actually factor into its effectiveness, believe it or not. The idea that William was killing in his own Fazbear restaurants is a ridiculous concept that in reality should have gotten him sent to prison. The saying is something along the lines of like, don't crap where you eat, which some take literally, others take as don't date people you see on a regular basis, and in this scenario I suggest that it should mean don't kill people where you're seen on a regular basis or, you know, constantly because it's your own business, especially if it's the business that like targets kids. And while yes, this doesn't instantly make you guilty, but come on, the first thing that anyone would do in this situation, not even a cop, would be question everyone who was working when whatever had happened, or whoever it was disappeared. And let's be realistic, an incident the likes of the missing children's incident from 1985 would ruin a business permanently. None of this somehow they stay open bullshit, because in the real world they would end up closing permanently because no parent would want to go to a place where 5 kids went missing, especially when no bodies were found, which could maybe help them, but it certainly wouldn't help much. If Afton had any competitors, any at all, alright? Even this world's version of Chuck E. Cheese, Afton should have gone there. If he had any competitors, or literally anywhere else, would have made more sense. However, he chose to kill where he eats, and that's probably one of the worst decisions that he could have made. Well, aside from, you know, the killing in the first place. Animatronics. While the animatronics are an entirely other mistake, this time around I want to talk about how stupid it was to hide the bodies in the animatronics. Like, how the f*** did he end up getting away with this? The smell of rotting bodies would already ruin the place, especially when its focus is eating pizza. The heat from the animatronic insides would speed up decomposition, and the animatronics are in front of people every single day. They even started complaining that they were leaking blood and mucus, as well as smelling like death. If this was real, and William getting away with it wasn't important for the plot, he would have been caught instantly. Oh, we never found the bodies of these kids, but now these animatronics are leaking blood and smell like death. Hell, they even make bone-crushing sounds when they move. We should probably check this out. Oh look, turns out we found those missing kids. William Afton, you're under arrest for the murder of Cassidy, Fritz, Jeremy, Gabriel, Susie. Boom! Instantly. I don't know how this wasn't an open and shut case. Straight up, William was so goddamn stupid that he shouldn't have made it to the first game. Not to mention how stupid he was by building the Funtime animatronics with these item containment chambers, as he was calling it, since the cops ended up questioning him about why he made those design choices in the sister location opening scene. Plus, he superpowered the jaw of Fredbear from Fredbear's Family Diner to end up giving it a jaw that accidentally killed his son. Absolute moron. William, not the son. It wasn't his fault that he got his head shoved in there. If he had put it in there himself, it would have been his fault, but he didn't. Enemies. Now, while William did choose a set of easy marks, since, you know, kids can't really defend themselves against a dude in a part animatronic furry suit, but he's a moron for exclusively killing that demographic only. I don't know why he did that. Sure, it's easier on him, especially when he's fully combined with an animatronic, but Henry serves as the opposition to William, and the reason William ends up burning multiple times. It's not Henry's fault that he turned into Springtrap, but it's certainly his fault that he turned into Scraptrap, since this is most likely due to the FNAF 3 fire, and the FNAF 6 fire turned him into Burntrap. So Henry has definitely been a pain in William's side for ages. Killing Henry would have resulted in nobody being able to chase William, basically. Like, Michael might have figured it out, but he wouldn't really be in a position to do anything without Henry. Henry gave him the FNAF 3 job, probably, and definitely gave him the FNAF 6 job, so if William had just offed Henry after offing his daughter, he would have had a much easier time, at least I'd think so. That's why every comic villain wants to kill the hero, right? Because if they do, they'll have a much easier time committing all their various crimes. So how is this any different? It shouldn't be. William is an absolute buffoon for not killing Henry when he had the chance. I'm sure it was Henry reporting him to the cops, like, you killed this man's daughter. Of course he's gonna have some form of vendetta against your ass. He's coming for blood and he actively tries to kill you multiple times. That's not something that you should have just ignored. You should have just killed Henry after his daughter, because honestly it makes sense. Then you kill his wife or the mother of Charlotte, as long as she's in the picture, knows about it, and actually cares, because sometimes they don't. But mom's gonna go after anyone who wronged their child, okay? Oh, that's something to witness, I'm telling you. Even my mom is vicious as hell, and she's like the sweetest woman in the world. So, you just get rid of the family, alright? Especially when it's your business partner. God, you're stupid. And while William may never have been caught for these acts, that's simply because he couldn't get caught or the plot would make no sense. So ultimately, the game had to find an excuse for his ridiculous behavior. But William could have done wonders if he had just been slightly more intelligent and maybe actually thought about things. Killing kids in your own pizzeria is horrible for business, so do that somewhere else, okay? If he had, he wouldn't have hid the bodies in the animatronics, which would have prevented the kids from attaching their souls to the animatronics that they were stuffed into. Thus, William wouldn't have had to disassemble them, which accidentally released their souls, causing him to hide in his Springtrap suit. The Spring Bonnie suit would have failed without him inside, thus preventing Springtrap from being created, and William wouldn't have been sealed behind a wall for 30 years. During those 30 years, he'd still be possessed by the one you should not have killed, since they didn't latch onto an animatronic in the first place, they latched onto him, and he'd be unable to properly die still, but he'd have an extra 30 years to work on bringing his kid back to life. He wouldn't have needed to send Michael to get Baby from Afton Robotics' storage facility, and Michael would have ended up fine. Fazbear Frights wouldn't have opened, resulting in the place never burning down, and the FNAF 6 game wouldn't have needed to take place. There would have been no need to repair the company image in FNAF VR. William would have been probably a millionaire, and he could have used that money to study ways to bring his son back. Perhaps discovering Remnant along the way, similar to how Henry created the Ella doll in the novels. William could have poured his grief into something, watched it become possessed, and then worked on recreating that in a robot version of his dead children. If his children even died anyway. Since Fazbear's wouldn't have closed, he wouldn't have needed to open Circus Babies, resulting in Elizabeth staying alive. And since Crying Child wouldn't have seen her get scooped, he wouldn't fear the animatronics. Thus Michael not needing to put his head in the Fredbear mouth because he thought it was funny, because his brother was scared. His brother wouldn't have been scared, so Michael wouldn't have needed to do that. William also just wouldn't have supercharged Fredbear's jaw, so even if Crying Child did get his head in there, which again I guess would technically be possible, he still wouldn't have died because of it. All of this simply goes back to William's first mistake, which was choosing to kill people in his own establishment. If that first kill also wasn't his business partner's daughter, nobody would have been suspicious of him and everything would have gone his way. Okay? Afton is smart. However, he could have been a lot smarter at the start, which would have resulted in him having an easy time on his killing spree, but I guess that would make for a very interesting game series, would it? In at 10, Andrew Cunanan. Andrew Cunanan was born in San Diego, California and eventually settled in San Francisco's Castro district and socialized with older, wealthy gay men while indulging heavily in illicit substances. It's unclear what set him off, but he began a cross-country killing spree of 5 unknown victims, the last of which was actually fashion designer Gianni Versace. Cunanan killed himself on a Miami boathouse in 1997, and if that didn't set off an alarm, congratulations, you have not been ruined by FNAF yet. However, William Afton also had 5 victims at least, but definitely only had 5 when FNAF 1 and even around FNAF 2 was released. And while FNAF 1 does take place in 1993, many have theorized it to instead take place in 1997, which is unlikely given the minimum wage of the times and the connection to another real person, but nonetheless, it's certainly an interesting case of more possible dates lining up and the same number of victims. You know, a lot of people on this list are actually going to have 5 victims, and it's extremely creepy. In at 9, Brian Wells. This is certainly an interesting case that you may not really think relates to William, but let me explain my thought process. Brian Douglas Wells was an American pizza delivery driver who was killed during a complex bank robbery plot. The plot involved a collar bomb, a scavenger hunt, the robbery itself, and a pizza delivery man. Following an attempt to rob PNC Bank, Wells was surrounded by police. That's when the bomb around his neck ended up detonating, killing him. And while his family denies that he was a part of it, investigators and a federal prosecutor concluded that Wells was a knowing participant in the bank robbery. However, he was told that the bomb was fake, and he did not know that his co-conspirators intended for him to die. Now, I think that it was probably detonated because he got caught and they didn't want him to rat on them, and that is the prevailing theory amongst these people as well, amongst the prosecutor and whatnot. But aside from being a pizza delivery man for Mamma Mia's Pizzeria, what possible connection could he have to Afton? Well, being killed by a device that was supposed to be safe, for one, the spring locking and the collar, being betrayed by your peers, in William's case most likely Henry, and the affinity for complex plans. I feel like this may have been at least a slight source of inspiration, especially since this came up when I searched for pizza place serial killers, because I was hoping that there would be one. That's weird to say. Let's just move on. In at 8, Nathan Dunlap. In December of 1993, after Chuck E. Cheese had closed in Aurora, Colorado, Margaret Kohlberg, who was the manager of this Chuck E. Cheese, was tallying receipts in the back room. While she was doing that, Bobby Stevens was scrubbing down the kitchen, and Ben Grant, Colleen O'Connor, and Sylvia Crawwell were all working in the main party area. However, there was someone hiding in the bathroom, 19-year-old Nathan Dunlap, who earlier that year had begun working as a cook, but was fired after an argument over his hours. But this time he was looking for revenge. He exited the bathroom and began firing, killing everyone in the building. First Sylvia, then Ben, then Colleen. Then he went into the kitchen where he shot Bobby, although Bobby ended up surviving and was actually a key witness in his case. Then Nathan went to the back room where Margaret opened the safe before being shot twice. Nathan filled her bag with $1,500 cash, arcade tokens, and keychains, but thanks to the security cameras he was promptly arrested and sentenced to death. Thanks to MatPat and his first game theory on FNAF, this one is fairly well known, hence why it's closer to the top, but if I didn't include it, I feel like everyone in the comments would have asked me why, so there you go. And it's 7, Burke and Hare. The Burke and Hare murders were 16 serial killings committed over a period of about 10 months in 1828 in Edinburgh, Scotland. The two men who committed these killings, last names Burke and Hare, were doing it because they also sold the corpses to Robert Knox for dissection at his anatomy lectures. There's actually a shortage of corpses in Edinburgh, and thus people actually started grave robbing and selling the corpses rather than selling the possessions, since a loophole in the system only considered it a theft if the body was taken with its clothes. Naked corpses were fine to take though, apparently. They didn't really think that one through. These two were killing in the name of science, something that we suspect William was doing as well. However, they actually were, in a messed up way, contributing to the furthering of science, whereas William is only doing it for his own selfish reasons and to become immortal. After Hare was given immunity to confess to the murders so that they could convict Burke, Burke was sentenced to death. Shortly afterwards, his corpse was dissected and his skeleton was displayed at the Anatomical Museum of Edinburgh Medical School, where, as of 2021, it actually still remains. Oh, and by the way, the reason they're known as Burke and Hare was because both of their first names are William. Yeah. So maybe Afton's wife is named something similar. And at 6, Ted Bundy. During an interview with Daco, PJ Haywood, the voice actor for William Afton in Sister Location, FNAF AR, and Ultimate Custom Night, said that Scott Cawthon described William as being a charismatic, smooth-talking snake oil salesman, which coincides with Book William being able to convince anyone of anything. This is actually very similar to how Ted Bundy had been described. Bundy was regarded as charismatic and handsome, traits that he exploited to win the trust of both his victims and society as a whole. He would typically approach his victims in public places, either feigning a physical impairment such as an injury or impersonating an authority figure, before bludgeoning them until they were unconscious. While he did operate nearly a decade before Afton started his spree, those are merely just like year numbers. But one of the most interesting facts, however, is that in 1975, Bundy was arrested and jailed in Utah for aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal assault in Utah, where the games and the crimes of Afton take place. Halfway through into number 5, Arthur Gary Bishop. Arthur Gary Bishop was an American serial killer in 1983, and as a result of a routine police investigation, he confessed to the murders of 5 young boys between 1979 and 1983. Bishop was born in Hinckley, Utah, and was the eldest of 6 brothers. Bishop was raised as a devout Latter-day Saint, Mormon, and was an Eagle Scout and an honor student, which is already suspicious in comparison to Afton, given that Afton was also regarded as intelligent given his talent for animatronics, especially in the 80s, and his passion for business. But not only that, Bishop also operated under an alias. Bishop was arrested for embezzlement in February of 1978 and given a 5-year suspended sentence, but he skipped his parole and fled to Salt Lake City, living under the alias of Roger Downs. Under this alias, Bishop would then kill 5 boys between 1979 and 1983. It's also interesting that multiple key dates in Bishop's life line up closely to releases of FNAF games. On July 14th, 1993, he was arrested, and FNAF 4 came out on July 23rd, 9 days after that. Well, not in the same year, but you know what I mean. Bishop's first kill was on October 14th, 1979, and Sister Location was released on October 7th. I mean, it's not concrete, but it's certainly interesting. Plus, also he was caught in 1983, the same year that Crying Child was bit. In at 4, Donald Harvey. Harvey belonged to a group of psychos known as the Angels of Mercy who claimed to kill for the benefit of the victim. Harvey was convicted of 37 of his more than 57 suspected murders, and he confessed to as many as 87. When Harvey was hired at the Cincinnati VA Medical Hospital, he managed to collect over 30 pounds of cyanide which he had kept in his home. He also kept diaries and detailed notes on each one of his victims, including how he killed them. That gives me just that's intense William Afton vibes. Like, not for some certain reasons, but the delusion of him thinking that he was doing it for the benefit of the victims or just for any benefit it's horrifying, okay? It's the exact same kind of delusion that I could see William having. And a similar delusion to what he seems to have in the games. In the books, he's not exactly like this from my memory, but the game version certainly seems to be the type, okay? Especially given his appearance in the Foxy Go 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 minigame where he's smiling. Getting close to the end in number 3, Thomas Lee Dillon. Thomas Lee Dillon was a serial sniper found guilty of killing 5 men, again with the 5. Directed by voices in his head, Dillon killed people randomly. According to attending psychiatrists, Dillon's delusions of grandeur spilled over into the reality of his life and the lives of his victims. His victims were killed by a high-powered rifle while they participated in outdoor activities, sometimes hundreds of miles from Dillon's home. Authorities did not link the killings to Dillon until he actually sent a letter to a local paper. After the FBI put together a criminal profile of the killer, a friend of Dillon's actually brought into the attention of the authorities, which in my mind is very close to the story of William Afton. The amount of victims, the authorities only investigating those murders after they got tipped off by a friend of the killer, in Afton's case that being Henry, the delusions or the voices in his head could be him being possessed. But honestly, a whole load of these people are just so much like William, it's terrifying. And ultimately in at number 2, John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy, as I'm sure you know, was an American serial killer who killed 33 young men and boys. Gacy regularly performed at children's hospitals and charitable events as Pogo or Patches the Clown, personas that he had devised. He became known as the Killer Clown due to his public services as a clown prior to the discovery of these crimes, but jeez. Gacy committed all of the crimes inside of his ranch house, which is a horrible idea, just like William killing inside of his own pizzeria. Typically, he would lure a victim to his home and then dupe them into donning handcuffs on the pretext of demonstrating a magic trick. And while this is absolutely disgusting and really makes me sick to my stomach, there are still a few similarities to Afton. Okay, killing in a place related to you. For Gacy, it was his ranch house, and for Afton, it's his business. The target demographic is also the same with young people, although Afton also killed girls, which I don't even want. Ugh. And while you may think that this is a stretch, even FNAF itself made the connection with FNAF AR through the clown Springtrap skin. Intentional or not, come on, that's a connection. And finally, in at number 1, Robert Berdella. Robert Berdella is, to me, the seemingly perfect inspiration for William Afton. Not only did this man own his own business called Bob's Bizarre Bazaar, where he reportedly sold human skulls, but he also seemingly started his killing spree in 1984. The MO is certainly not the same. Berdella would drug and kidnap men that he met in bars and on the streets, but the same idea of killing people you meet in a restaurant scene is carried over to William. There is no confirmed inspiration for William, hence this list, but there are certainly a decent amount of similarities between these two. In fact, if you combine like all the serial killers we talked about on this list, especially these last 4, you'll basically get a real William Afton, and I don't like that, okay? That's horrifying. But again, that was the point of this list, so it was a way for me to talk about FNAF without having to talk about FNAF, okay? I didn't go into too much detail with these because, well, I'm sure you can guess why, but yeah. Either way, I think that this is a pretty... The similarities are scary, that's all I have to say. In at 10, ghost stories. There was a thread on the FNAF Reddit about role-playing as an in-universe FNAF outsider, and this tale comes from Super Bowl Meme, who thought that the ghost stories were just that, ghost stories. I remember going to Fazbear's during its final days open. It was fun, despite all the rumors surrounding the place. I went back there recently though, and my experience has shown me things I never could have imagined. I busted in late at night around 4 AM, and the place was abandoned for several years before this, and it showed. Without maintenance, the place looked like the opposite of somewhere children would want to go, and I looked around and I was trying to find something, like literally anything, but all I found was the stage and the performers. They were, old to say the least, completely rotten and moldy, and I could barely breathe around them. Then after seeing them, I noticed something. They were focusing on me. Solely on me. Then Freddy blinked. I've never ran faster before, and I don't know if it was a dream or maybe those rumors are more than just stories. Their eyes told me everything. In at 9, Twitter. The Twitter account Diamond Zia on June 27, 2020 tweeted out 3 photos with the line "FNAF will be real in 48 hours." These pictures were just of news articles. One from USA Today titled "5 Children Have Gone Missing Inside Chuck E. Cheese." One from Associated Press called "Post-Hour Worker at Chuck E. Cheese Reported Dead at 27." And a final one from something news, couldn't quite tell what it was, saying "Night shift worker at Chuck E. Cheese's claims strange movement from animatronics during post hours." However, this title had animatronics spelled incorrect. Yeah, everyone was freaking out at the pictures and the articles, particularly the first one, and they were shared all across the internet. People were freaking out because, you know, we all thought that FNAF was gonna be real. Chuck E. Cheese was closing at this time too. However, people didn't realize that these were fake. How are they fake, do you ask? Source code editing, okay? You can change whatever, like what anything says on a website. All you need to do is inspect the source code on like Google Chrome or something, okay? You just need to find the aspect that you're looking for, then once you do, you can change it to whatever you want. So whoever made the original image found an article about Chuck E. Cheese closing or something, and then just changed it to 5 children going missing, okay? And the same thing with the other ones. That's why there was only pictures and not actual articles. However, now we know that Freddy Fazbear's is getting a pizza delivery service, so I guess technically, in a way, Freddy Fazbear's was real, but not in the actual location, okay? There's no location. And it ate doors. This was bound to be on a list eventually, okay? I hate the goddamn doors in this game. Why do they open when the power is out? That makes no sense. Even if it's like an electromagnet, like everyone keeps saying in the comments whenever I bring this up, those require power to turn on. So if anything, it would be costing power to keep the door open rather than closed. Gravity doesn't work in reverse. If the magnet is off, then the door would just fall down. I get that it's for gameplay purposes, okay, but what in this universe makes this make sense? There's no conceivable way that these doors should work in this fashion, but they do, and it makes me mad. Like, why would you do this to me? Sky Daddy Scott, bringing it back. Why? This is so stupid. I don't know. I don't know if anyone can actually believe that this is how they work, okay? Some people say it's a fire safety thing, but if the building runs out of power, how are the doors open? Electromagnets don't work like that. God, it would cost more power to keep them open. At least operating at normal logic levels, okay? The tales of these doors have to be some form of Legend of the FNAF universe, because they're just stupid. In its 7 investigation. Speaking of things that are too ridiculous for people to believe, do FNAF universe people think that the cops are horrible at their job? Like, we know that there was an investigation into the incidents thanks to Midnight Motorist from FNAF 6, but they never found the bodies. Like, even though the animatronics smelt like death and were oozing blood and mucus, so much that they had to shut down according to FNAF 1 newspaper clippings. So, what gives? Why did they close the investigation so quickly? Or why didn't they look into the suits when it was reported that they had blood on them? I don't care if it's the 80s and the police don't have the tech they do now. If a place you are investigating because there's missing people and you found no bodies and then something starts leaking blood, you go and check the thing out. You can't just leave and be like, that can't be related. Who the hell thinks like that? It's so stupid. And honestly, even though it's a game and like there had to be a reason to continue on, it shouldn't have happened. I get that they found the body, like if they found the bodies, we wouldn't have gotten the games. But sometimes it's quality over quantity, okay? You know, maybe they had to meet their arrest quota for the month, so they just arrested someone. Is the incompetence of the police, like, is that a legend in this universe, or what do they think happened? And at 6, FNAF ARG. This was brought up in a recent MatPat FNAF theory, okay? The basic idea is that the FNAF Fazbear Frights books were originally going to have an ARG that Scott ended up cutting out for whatever reason, and then released part of it in the Felix the Shark book 12. However, I'm here to tell you guys, not real. Scott has said on multiple occasions that he doesn't want to cross the line between fact and fiction, that he wanted to keep these two worlds separate, probably because FNAF relates so closely to Chuck E. Cheese, and there might be some legal trouble there, but that's also why he said he would never make a real location. He stuck so hard to that he didn't even make a website for the indie game dev introduced in FNAF VR because he thought that would be too fuzzy. So there is no FNAF ARG, okay? If a website relating to the game is too much, there is no bigger quest here. Last time we thought there was a restaurant and ended up getting harassed, and then a pizzeria owner who just so happened to be named Mike also got harassed, so please don't go out searching for this. And if there was one, I'm sure that Scott would have said something about it. Don't harass random people, okay? Just stick to the games and the game files themselves. But, with that being said, with the appearance of a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza delivery service from Virtual Dining Concepts, maybe there's an outlet for Scott to release secret bits of lore. However, it would involve people needing to buy food, so if he chose to do that, it may not go over the best, but still, even if that is the case, it would only come from this virtual restaurant, nowhere else. Halfway through into number 5, Felix the Shark. Felix the Shark is the first story in Fazbear Frights 12, Felix the Shark, and unofficially the Fazbear Frights series 34th story, and it's written by Andrea Wagner. And I feel like this is, like, the entire book is more so FNAF urban legends since these didn't make it into official release. So this one in particular though is worth pointing out since it does resemble Sparky the dog in many ways. Dirk, an adult, reminisces about Freddy's with his group of friends. They all bond over the familiar characters of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. However, when Dirk brings up the character Felix the Shark, his friends get confused. He recalls specific details, that Felix the Shark was kept in an aquarium-like large tube around the pizzeria that visitors could enter and swim up along with him, but his friends believed that he was just making it up. Determined to prove this memory was true, Dirk visits multiple Freddy's locations in many states to find one that actually had a Felix. And finally, in a near abandoned town, he finds a few people who remember Felix, all of whom had terrible nightmares concerning him. And this is exactly how urban legends start and grow. And I mean, in this it turned out to be true, but come on, this whole book is urban legends, even by FNAF Fazbear Frights standards. In at 4, FNAF AR. I've said it before and I will say it a million times. Why is the company sending out animatronics that they know are dangerous? The whole point of FNAF AR is that the company is sending these people animatronics to try and rebuild their reputation, right? But then they see that they're infected with the virus that's turning them hostile, and instead of recalling them like any normal company, they send out more, including multiple versions of the killer that caused them to ruin their reputation in the first place. What did they not think that like it was just an older Bonnie model and they're like, oh yeah, Springtrap? Okay, come on. If that was the case, it would be listed in AR as Old Bonnie or Spring Bonnie, not Springtrap, okay? They know exactly what they're doing and nobody called them out for it. Companies will get in trouble for making like the freaking tiniest mistake in their games, but then this company can get away with just letting people die. That's sus as hell, okay? Purple is sus. That's so ridiculous that the FNAF universe had to believe that this concept is just an urban legend, right? Like, that's so dumb. Who would do that? Nobody would believe that it actually happened. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Princess Cassidy. According to one very adamant viewer during my last 24-hour live stream, that was a whole other set of emotional trauma, there's a theory that the princess in Princess Quest is actually meant to be Cassidy. And while I don't agree with that theory, it's still a theory nonetheless, so I might as well talk about it. This theory generated from some apparent files within one of the games. I'm guessing that it was Security Breach, given that there are 3 games in that one compared to FNAF VR's mobile version where there was only 1. But apparently, according to this viewer, those files indicated that it was Cassidy, because it was named Cassidy, okay? Apparently that they changed it, so there goes that evidence. But despite me saying that I didn't care what it found, they were very adamant and were swearing by it. They swore that it was Cassidy. The only reason that I could believe this would be for purely symbolic reasons, since Cassidy would technically be trying to torture William if they were the one you should not have killed, which I still don't believe, but that would also end up giving her a motive to free Vanessa from William's control. But that would be the only reasoning I'd be able to actually think of for this, which makes it seem more like a hypothesis than a theory to me, especially given that they changed the file, the name on the file, so it wasn't Cassidy. And while Cassidy may have been incorrect, it did end up containing a soul, the soul of Vanessa. So in the end, it is true, in a way, which makes it good enough for this list, okay? I'm kinda stretching at this point. 3 parts is a lot. But ultimately, in at number 2, Fazbear Frights. While yes, I did include Felix the Shark and his whole book on the list as a number, that's because those are like even legends in the Fazbear Frights universe, like I said, since they were cut stories that were thrown together for a cash grab 12th book, let's be honest. However, I think that by FNAF standards, all these stories would have to be legends. I mean, like, come on, the story of a man who can't die in a hospital. While relating to Afton, we know that it didn't happen since we see Afton in the Burntrap suit in Security Breach. Plus, sea bonnies, come on, that's so utterly insane and stupid that these stories must only fit into the lore by being legends. Like, things based in somewhat of a real original story that then get blown out of proportion to be something else, but with that root of reality. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the difference between a myth and a legend, okay? Myths are entirely fictional, then legends have kind of a root. That's the one thing I learned from my second semester, second year college elective, okay? It's the only thing though. This entire book series are just FNAF universe legends that are passed around in universe, which kind of makes them cooler because it's a look into like the general population of the FNAF universe, but that's a thing for another day. And finally, in at number 1, God's Wrath. Okay, so this seems to be an easy way of interpreting multiple fires that keep happening at FNAF locations. It could possibly be seen as God, or a god, trying to cleanse the restaurants, or punishing them for causing so much grief, okay? I mean, think about it. There have been 3 fires now at FNAF locations, including Fazbear's Fright, the simulated pizzeria from FNAF 6, and then the Security Breach Mega Pizzaplex. Each location having some form of horrible story attached to it. And I think that in a way, the people may have started to see these places as cursed, or maybe every fire makes them think the place is cleansed of their darkness, which means that they can go back, which explains why everyone is just constantly returning to Fazbear's despite multiple kids going missing every time. Like in the Security Breach opening scene, it's packed full of kids despite there being 9 kids that have gone missing there already. So maybe the explanation is that the darkness and sins of the restaurant are cleansed due to fire. Or maybe they think that the place is cursed to eternally suffer God's wrath, and that's why there's so much darkness around the place. But then again, if you think that it's cursed to suffer God's wrath because of the horrible people, why would you go back? Basically, I'm using this to call out why are people going back, okay? It's stupid. Don't do it. Stop. Just think, please. In at 10, the Golden Killer. I am absolutely positive that the FNAF universe has plenty of urban legends about these restaurants. I mean, like, how could they not? A place where kids keep going missing that then gets shut down and reopens almost every 5 years. If that's not a cause for urban legends, I don't know what is. Christ, this is one of the most horrifying stories a parent could ever hear about. Like, if anyone so much as looked at in our direction wrong as a kid, my father would ban us from returning. It was insane, and I'm honestly surprised that he didn't me. Either way, there must be tales of the Golden Killer that would dress in an animatronic suit and lure children away with the promise of free tickets and pizza. Obviously used as a cautionary tale by parents about the dangers of talking to strangers, but I think they may not realize how close and how serious these stories actually are, especially given that the Pizzaplex, at least when it's open, is still packed full of children, despite 9 kids already going missing there. In at 9, Afton possessed. A long time ago, I made a passing comment that Afton wasn't actually dead. People were mad that I didn't put Springtrap on the original scariest animatronics list, and aside from him being literally so unscary that they had to make a whole new game to compensate, I also argued that since he's just a guy enhanced by robotics, he wasn't an animatronic and instead a cyborg. And in the great terms of Fallout 4, nobody liked that. Even when I cited the fact that even MatPat pointed out that Springtrap never dies. But that's aside the point. However, I was in fact proven correct when the story of the man in room 1280 came around to show us that William was unable to die thanks to the spirit of the one you should not have killed. A young boy with an alligator mask in the books who was keeping him alive so that he could suffer for his crimes. And until this day, most people still won't accept that despite it being proven, okay? They take him off life support in the book and he's still kicking after that, okay? So whether this hospital experience actually happens or not, the point of the book was to show us that Afton was possessed and that's how he survived, okay? Someone needs to update the wikis, because they still say that he died as a human. He didn't really die until like the FNAF 6 fire, maybe when he became a sentient code, if we want to consider that dying. In at 8, Springtrap, another urban legend from the FNAF universe that's also in the FNAF universe, like it's from the FNAF universe but also inside the FNAF universe, is Springtrap. The whole point of Springtrap was that he was an old animatronic that still worked that they set loose in the Fazbear Fright horror attraction. The attraction that was a replica of the old Freddy Fazbear's Pizza located inside an actual amusement park meant to revive the decades-old urban legends that surrounded the establishment from 30 years ago. Springtrap's whole purpose was to be an urban legend. If we got to see more from like the actual universe, like materials and newspapers, I'm sure that they would have marketed the only working animatronic as horrifying and actually possessed by one of the original victims, all while being unaware that it was actually the killer that they had set loose once more. From a story standpoint, I see why they had to do it like this. It actually like puts stakes back into the series because the killer's out again. But my real question is, why did Henry sell the location, okay? I mean, like, they bought the place to get scraps, right? So why did Henry sell it if he was just planning on burning it down? Like, why risk William getting loose? Why even burn it down when he was already trapped in the room and had been stuck in there for 30 years, okay? It seems painfully stupid in my opinion. Dude, you don't need to sell it, okay? Just let him suffer. And at 7, Afton possessed. See how I changed the inflection? This time I put the emphasis on Afton instead of possessed. That's because this time around, Afton is the one doing the possessing instead of the one being possessed. Yes, we originally assumed that Vanny was going to be possessed by Glitchtrap, aka William Afton, aka the coded digital version of Afton's consciousness that possessed a VR video game. Yeah, but it definitely wasn't something that could be proven at the time. But after the release of FNAF Security Breach and the discovery of the therapist tapes at the end, we know that this theory was in fact correct. Vanessa did get possessed by Glitchtrap at the end of FNAF VR, and then Afton used her to get back to his old body. However, now it seems that both versions of Afton are kicking around, assuming that the blob didn't destroy Burntrap, something which we also still don't know, and probably won't know until the DLC comes out, or even maybe the next game, or maybe even a book, hell, maybe even the movie. And it's 666 Custom Night. In the good old days where all we figured was that we were criminals stuck in purgatory, we thought that all the secrets of FNAF could be solved using the game's Custom Night, where you'd set the different characters to specific difficulty levels, and then you'd see if you can make it through. However, one such suggestion, the 666 suggestion, was in fact not the case. By setting the latter 3 animatronics to level 6, it was rumored that the kitchen camera would be unlocked, and then you'd have audio as well as visual for this night. But that turned out to just simply not be the case, because, well, if you look at the game files, there is no visual for the kitchen camera, meaning that no matter what, unless you added a version of it yourself, there would be no way to unlock that camera. And this wasn't the only time we'd end up getting trolled by FNAF 1 Custom Night, since later on the Custom Night having the code would indeed become true. However, that code was 1987 and it would just jump scare you instantly with Golden Freddy, which is literally the worst thing ever. Halfway through into number 5, John Wayne Gacy. Clown Springtrap is Springtrap's 3rd skin in FNAF AR and the 3rd skin to be introduced in the Dark Circus event. In addition to looking like a horrifying clown, he carries around a very large red mallet in his left hand. And considering how clowns are one of the most common fears in the world, with more people in the States being scared of clowns than global warming, or even terrorism, I think putting Clown Springtrap on this list is definitely understandable, because, you know, John Wayne Gacy. This man, okay, he's like Harley Quinn but not cute, and basically still meant to be a reference to John Wayne Gacy, at least as I understand it. John Wayne Gacy being a serial killer who used to do kids shows dressed as either Pogo or Patches the Clown. An inspiration that was assumed but not confirmed seemingly until this skin. It's also worth noting that this skin looks a lot like the supernatural version of John Wayne Gacy's ghost, so I feel like that's where the connection comes from. Plus, you know, a clown killer. In at 4, FNAF Remake. For a while we'd heard rumors of a FNAF remake, one that would be so utterly terrifying that we would forget all about the horrific implications it would have to the lore. But honestly, it was just that. Theories, rumors, speculation, legend. Until the announcement of the Fazbear Fanverse initiative. In that announcement we were indeed proven, at least somewhat correct, with the lineup containing FNAF Plus, a reimagining of the first Freddy Fazbear game being created by Fiznom, the creator of A Shadow Over Freddy's, Porkchop's Adventure, and a major contributor to the original Pop Goes fan game. Originally, Fiznom was creating a remake of FNAF 2, known as Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Open Source, later renamed to another FNAF fan game, Open Source, as practice for learning a new game engine. But since the game wasn't really a transformative remake of the original FNAF 2, Scott Cawthon did take the game down, because it was literally basically just FNAF 2. However, he was intrigued with the project and contacted Fiznom about making a original FNAF 1 remake, which now he is. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Bunny Man's Urban Legend. Okay, so, you know, I play video games to disconnect from reality. I'm sure some of you do too. When I play like super hot in VR, I know that I can't really do it in real life because I can't catch guns, but I can slow down time. But when scary games like FNAF are all of a sudden connected to real life horrible events, it's not really all that easy to play, and you know what? I hardly played them to begin with. Vanny is a follower of Glitchtrap, okay? You know that. She's the main villain of Security Breach, but players noticed something similar about the game's antagonist. Something connected to something very real from the 70s, the Bunny Man. In Fairfax County, Virginia, back in the late 70s, residents would report sightings of a Bunny Man who would run around and terrorize locals. They say the Bunny Man disappeared in the early 80s, but maybe they just disguised themselves as an animatronic, okay? Maybe the Bunny Man's still out there. You thought that Easter was a good idea? Ha, no, not anymore. Good luck sleeping tonight. Plus, I mean, Security Breach does have a very 80s aesthetic, so maybe this is where Bunny Man went. But ultimately, in at number 2, the Missing Children's Incident. The Missing Children's Incident was an event that occurred in the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, at least from the first game, presumably in 1985, a series of unsolved murders committed by William Afton. In the first game, the incident was mentioned in newspaper clippings, occasionally seen replacing the Rules for Safety sign, normally appearing in the East Hall. The 4 mascots, Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, all also had particularly foul odors and what appeared to be blood and mucus around their eyes and mouth, which concerned parents and legal guardians and decided to akin to reanimated carcasses, since they, quote, noticed what appeared to be blood and mucus around the eyes and mouths of the mascots, and they didn't check inside them for bodies. The children were never found, somehow, and presumed dead, and the restaurant ended up closing by year's end, which didn't stop them from reopening in Fazbear's Fright, and then with FNAF 6, and then again with the Pizzaplex. So yeah, needless to say, there's a whole load of issues surrounding the brains of the parents in this universe. And finally, in at number 1, the Bite of 87. Was that the Bite of 87? No, Markiplier, it was not. The Bite from FNAF 4 was in 1983 and often called the Chomp or the Bite of 83. Okay, the Bite of 87 was an incident that occurred in 1987 at the second Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. It was briefly mentioned by Phone Guy in the first game and it had us hooked from the get-go. The details of this attack and the identity of the animatronic responsible are really unknown, but it allegedly caused the victim to lose their frontal lobe, you know, the front part of their brain. The victim actually ended up surviving the attack, but the incident contributed to a loss in the company's reputation, understandably, which was one of the numerous incidents that resulted in a major drop in business. But not forever, for some reason. As a result of the incident, the animatronics were no longer allowed to wander around during the day, instead management decided to let their free roaming mode be exclusive to night so as to prevent their servos from locking up, which is not how servos work, but maybe it's how they work in this universe. Some fans think that Foxy caused the bite, others think Freddy, Mangle, some even think that Chica might have done it. However, it's pretty generally accepted that Jeremy from FNAF 2 is the one who got bit. But I propose the possibility, okay, I'm not saying this is true, but it's an idea, that Afton himself is actually the one who got bit, which could have caused him to go even more berserk after the missing children's incident. Since, because you know, his frontal lobe was removed, he would no longer feel fear, as described by Maphead in his FNAF 4's wrong theory. I mean, that theory was wrong for the outcome, but not for the science, so maybe Matt was onto something. In at 10, Piranha Plushtrap. Piranha Plushtrap is Plushtrap's second skin in FNAF AR and the third skin in the Wicked Tides event. He was released on June 7, 2021 after being delayed by 3 days for unknown reasons. Alright, we made a community post about this one, and personally I think that this is one of the scariest FNAF AR skins ever added. Piranha Plushtrap is hardly like the original Plushtrap, but this one is much worse. Being made of a more organic flesh-like material, even having realistic gums, his mouth is littered with long, thin, sharp teeth, and his eyes are extremely small and glow an ocean blue. What the hell? On the sides of his head there are 2 glowing orange gills, and his feet glow that same orange. His hands also have orange webbing in between his fingers that stretches when they move, obviously that's what webbing does, and his ears are covered in small barnacles. And his mouth, stomach, and right leg, oh don't get me started, they're covered in algae. Finally, his body is covered in spikes, and his torso is split open to reveal his ribs. This thing is horrifying. I hope we get it in him in another game, not just special delivery, but I don't want him in real life. I would rather dig myself out of a hole with a rusty fork. Honestly. And at 9, Golden Freddy. Golden Freddy is a mysterious ghost-like entity that takes the form of a yellow animatronic bear. He plays a prominent role in the FNAF series, although his origins are cryptic and unknown. But many speculate that Crying Child, at least at one point, possessed the animatronic, which would be an easy confirmation to make in the movie, but I mean, oh well. On the other hand, many also believe that Golden Freddy is possessed by Cassidy, and that Cassidy is also the vengeful spirit, aka the one you should not have killed from Ultimate Custom Night, although in my research it is much more likely that Crying Child is the vengeful spirit and that Cassidy is the one that possesses Golden Freddy. Since firstly it makes for a better story, and in all honesty Cassidy has no significance to the greater story, or at least they have less significance than Crying Child. However, while confirmation for any explanation would be appreciated, I'm glad that this ain't real, alright? I don't need to be hallucinating, okay? I already see weird things enough, and these things are real, especially when I have to scroll through things for FNAF research, so I would rather not hallucinate, like posters changing, or someone saying it's me in front of me. I don't want that, alright? So, it's a good thing Golden Freddy isn't real, otherwise I would probably have already been put in an insane asylum instead of them trying to. And at 8, Vanny. Vanny is possessed by the digital virus Glitchtrap, a form of the serial killer William Afton, and appears as the main antagonist of FNAF Security Breach. It's revealed in the Princess Quest minigames that she was actually the main protagonist of Help Wanted, where she was first corrupted by Glitchtrap. She also plays a role in FNAF AR Special Delivery. In Help Wanted, Vanny has some uncertainty in her voice when she was confronted about her task, implying that she, at first, wasn't fully ready to actually kill people. However, by the time the Security Breach came around, she seemingly has killed at least 9 people at the Pizzaplex, as seen in a newspaper article in The Bad Ending. However, that could also just be A and Gregory, since one of the kids looks like him, meaning that those kids who have gone missing are just kids whose profiles got wiped out and aren't necessarily dead. In Security Breach, Vanny is also shown to have a sadistic personality hidden behind a childlike flamboyance. However, I still simp for Vanessa, and that's why I'm glad she's not real, because you know what this would be? You know that meme where it's like, Pennywise and he's like, oh, I got the Fortnite Battle Pass down here, and then Georgie climbs in. Yeah, it would be like that, except it would be Vanny, and she wouldn't have to say anything. All she has to do is be like, Vanessa, and I'd be like, oh, hello. Like, yeah. And at 7, Burntrap. Burntrap is higher on this list because, while some people may consider him a waste in Security Breach, it was certainly a surprise. We figured that Afton would come back, as he always does. However, we never thought that he would actually come back like this. We figured that there would be more ceremony to a resurrection. However, Burntrap was certainly not expected, or at least I didn't expect a new form of Afton to appear. I figured that we'd have Scrap Trap or even Glitchtrap, but No. During the fight against him, Burntrap walks between 3 different rooms on the other side of the underground pizzeria. Gregory has to watch for which room Burntrap is currently in, and then press the corresponding button when he attempts to take control of Glamrock Freddy. Doing so causes the room to erupt into flames and hurts him because, you know, fire, and stops the corruption attempt. Failure to do so, and in time, Glamrock Freddy's eyes will turn purple, making him hostile towards Gregory, and then you'll probably die. But you know what? I'm damn glad he's not real, because that would have way too many implications. And I already have a hard enough time trying to figure out the mysteries of FNAF. I don't need to try and figure out the mysteries of the universe as well. So, yeah, or even the multiverse, because that's how Burntrap would be here. So, yeah, no thanks. And it ain't Circus Baby. Circus Baby is one messed up mamma jamma. I mean, don't get me wrong, some specific kids make me get William's whole MO, but the fact that he made these robots, especially the fun times, specifically to kill, and then the first kid they kill is his own daughter, that's some serious karma. But considering how horrific Baby becomes after this, thanks to Elizabeth, I feel like she may have had it coming. Girl was a lot more like her father than she should have been, in all honesty. While yes, crushing any kid would have been bad, I mean, like, your creator's daughter, seriously? Like, come on, bro. Was there no way to blacklist William? You have the animatronics that can walk on their own with advanced AI, facial recognition technology, sound discs that can change what things look like, but you can't make a goddamn program that says do not kill these kids, they come from me. Like, bro, if you ask me, you had it coming. Who tells their kids not to do something especially expecting them to listen? Seriously, dude, William is stupid, but this was still a messed up thing to do, so I'm glad that this isn't real until the kids start screaming in my hall again, and then I wish Baby was real. Halfway through into number 5, RWQFSFASXC. Shadow Bonnie makes an appearance in FNAF 2, but is more so a main character in FNAF 3, where the character makes an ultimate appearance as a glitched out game character, and as a statue that you need to click on to enable the glitch minigame. It's weird, okay? Shadow Bonnie has also made an appearance in the FNAF AR game. This character has been everywhere. RWQFSFASXC is just a pitch black version of Toy Bonnie with glowing eyes and teeth. It's pretty weird when you think about it, and in all honesty, it doesn't really make sense, but who knows, alright? It's Shadow Bonnie. No matter, being just a void of pitch black energy can make any animatronic scary, and honestly, we don't know how Shadow Bonnie came into being. There are some theories that it was someone who got springlocked in the suit before Afton, or that somebody got killed, but we don't know for sure, and that makes it even scarier. Either way, I'm glad that this thing can't haunt me in real life, because I really do like lighting. I like electricity. Yeah, if Shadow Bonnie was real, I would be rough. I would be in a rough spot. Honestly, streaming would be difficult. In it for Gregory. Honestly, I'm actually scared of Gregory. The knowledge that this kid has exceeds even some of my own. This kid is the size of a 4-year-old, can fit inside Freddy, baby strollers, and other various small areas around the Pizzaplex. He's too small to drive one of the go-karts alone, but he knows how to restart generators, operate a trash compactor, start and drive a car, as well as identify a car battery, connect the jumper cables on that car battery properly, and then use those cables to fix Freddy's whole recharge every hour issue. How the living hell does that make any sense? Plus, Gregory is just a killer. This kid is easily able to destroy all 3 animatronics without a moment's hesitation, and then use their upgrades on Freddy. He is willing to kill Vanny, like I said, despite actually seemingly knowing her, as we see in the best ending, and he burns Burntrap multiple times in an attempt to stop him from taking control over Freddy. So what the absolute living hell is this kid doing, and how is he just so nonchalant about the whole thing? And the argument for self-defense doesn't count because I kept seeing that a lot, okay? Because self-defense requires the proper use of force against your attacker, and tearing someone to shreds using 6 animatronics is not proper force. It was so gory that they couldn't even show it in the comic for that ending. Like, Jesus! Getting close to the end, into number 3, Chica. While it may seem counterintuitive for me not to want Chica to be real, I think it's probably best if she isn't. You see, I have this perfect scenario in my head that works well enough that I'm satisfied with the story that I've concocted about the relationship between Chica and I. However, if it was real, that would first make all the things even worse than they already are, in the sense that I'd be talking about a real thing and not a video game character. And then I'd have the awkward moment of her or her creator possibly knowing that I've said all these things. She'd know if she was if her AI was good enough, but the creator would definitely know. And let's be honest, things would not play out like I say they would play out if Chica was real, okay? I wouldn't have all the attention, she wouldn't be chasing me, plus, she's a robot, and that's probably sad. We all think the movie Her is incredibly cringe, right? I feel like that's a general consensus. Well, if Chica was real, I would be dangerously close to living that reality. But this way, it's harmless fun. If she was real, it wouldn't be. Could a robot sue me? Her creator could. Penultimately, in number 2, Springtrap. It's pretty universally known that FNAF 3 is one of the easier FNAF games, with only one animatronic that can really kill you. If you just juggle in between a couple rooms, you'll be overall able to survive fairly easily. But while some consider this game to be scary, overall it's one of the least scary of all, and that's thanks to Springtrap. Springtrap's jump scare in this game is actually the worst jump scare in the series, having the only real scare factor being the sound that plays along with it. But as for the actual model, he just moves towards you a little bit, and then that's it. There was also an interview with Daco as a reward for him beating 50/20 mode, where Scott said that he was actually going to end the series after FNAF 3, but the community's disappointment with the Springtrap jump scare caused him to make the 4th game with the nightmare animatronics. The interview is available for you to listen to online on Daco's channel, so don't go telling me that I'm incorrect without watching it, alright? Because he says it, or at least at the very least implies that this is true. It's been a while since I watched it, so I can't remember exactly, but no matter what, if Springtrap was real, that would also mean that Afton is real. And you know what? I don't want to deal with that. So yeah, he's my number 2. And finally, in at number 1, the nightmares. I think that if this was really meant to be a horror series, which it is, the nightmare animatronics should be everywhere. Honestly, they are absolutely terrifying. The normal animatronics aren't really all that scary. The scariest part about those games, like with the Springtrap jump scares, the sound that plays with the animatronic jump scares. But the nightmares are truly terrifying, and one of the reasons that I don't want to play FNAF 4 or the Night Terror levels of Help Wanted. These things are so horrifying, but also iconic, especially since they're the reason there was a FNAF movie. And like, my nightmares are already screwed up enough, alright? Especially with all the things that I've seen looking up FNAF, alright? It's not your typical nightmare, I'll tell you that. But if they were real, and I actually had to defend my room against these animatronics, I don't think that I would. I think that I would just let it happen, because you know what, that's too stressful for me, and I'm kind of over it. So, yeah. Glad these aren't real. And at 10, Scrap Baby. Scrap Baby is a creepy animatronic. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Scrap Baby is by far creepier than the normal baby animatronic, and this costume certainly does it justice. Animatronics are a difficult costume to really make, since we're people, and unfortunately do not have robotic limbs for the most part. Or if we do, we typically try to make it look like a real leg instead of a robot leg. But a Scrap Baby is even more difficult since, you know, it's a scrap animatronic, and it has a giant freaking claw in its hand. Scrap Baby is a very damaged and recycled version of Baby with a realistic reddish orange kind of bodysuit, light blue stuff, yellow pigtails, and okay, she wears an orange top with red frills, and it's just super damaged, okay? Like this, she's very damaged. Mentally and physically. Yet somehow Instagram user Gaius Bazzani was able to recreate this in an awesome way. So, very well done. And at 9, Springtrap. Craftix Gaming's YouTube channel features a video of a real Springtrap costume, and honestly, it's terrifying. Springtrap is the main animatronic of FNAF 3, and this costume is freaking nuts. This is a very good costume, and while Springtrap may not be the scariest animatronic, he's not someone I'm gonna want to tussle with. However, I want to talk about what's going on with this character, because my guy, you dressed up as a possessed man who is inhabiting an animatronic, unable to die but still decaying. You are quite literally dressing up as a serial killer. Like in the FNAF world, if you dressed up like this, it'd be like if you dressed up as Ted Bundy in this world. And if you want to be in FNAF that badly, okay, don't dress as the serial killer, is all I'm saying. And I know that's ironic coming from me, okay, given what I'm dressed like at this moment. Do I look like I want to be in Five Nights at Freddy's? Have I made things seem like I want to be in this world? Because if I have, you need to watch more of these videos, okay? Also, I'm dressed up as the purple guy who makes no appearance in the actual FNAF world, okay? There is no actual, there is the actual purple guy, but he doesn't look like this, okay? The purple guy that I am dressed as is not actually a real version of the serial killer in their world, okay? I don't want to be in that world. Those doors aren't it, Chief. They ain't it. No, the doors ruin it for me. And at 8, Vanny. With Vanny being an upcoming villain and already one of the most popular characters in the series, there are bound to be plenty of costumes of her. However, this one from Rojito Uwu on Twitter is probably the most accurate and creepiest one I've seen. Vanny being a reluctant follower does in a way technically make this a Glitchtrap cosplay as well, but we won't really talk about that because that's not what counts. This costume is probably the most realistic costume on this list because, well, Vanny in the games ended up making her own suit and is just a human inside, whereas like the other characters like Scrap Baby or Springtrap are animatronics as well as sometimes part human, be it soul or another body. And Rojito's costume follows the exact same concept as Vanny, just a person who makes their own suit, which makes this potentially one of the scariest things of all. I mean, technically it's not the same thing because they're not possessed and enticed to make it by the person possessing their brain, but, I mean, it's close enough. I mean, they could be possessed for all we know. I don't know. I don't know. And at 7, Ennard. Costumes don't really have to be elaborate to be scary. Take for example this Ennard cosplay by YouTube channel Skywarped33. The entire endoskeleton spaghetti bits aren't there, but the lights and sounds make it even more frightening than you'd think. The face also opens up, and I think that we all know how I feel about animatronics who can move their face at will at this point, okay? It's not something that should be allowed. However, even without all the parts and the eyes, this Ennard cosplay is not something I would want to run into in a dark alley, especially not after that goddamn vent repair minigame that caused me to have some serious issues, okay? It's rough, okay? I used to like spaghetti. Man, like now what am I supposed to do? And at 6, Nightmare Freddy. Nightmare Freddy is one of the most iconic versions of the character, even if there are only 3 games that feature this guy, those being FNAF 4, Ultimate Custom Night, and FNAF ER. However, this Nightmare Freddy cosplay is insane, and in my opinion would have been our front runner for the Coupe de France cosplay competition that it was for back in 2017. The video was uploaded by YouTube channel Gorgon Geek, and this guy plays the robot thing really well, but as soon as he drops that microphone he goes into terror mode, and it's certainly something to behold. I would have enjoyed it if he had like the little frettles with him, but the moving mouth is certainly a nice touch, especially with the attempted jump scares they do in the video, because he just goes like ah and stuff. Like imagine if this guy had started twerking though. At one point I thought he was going to. He went to pick up the mic and I thought he was just going to start busting it, but no. I think that would have won them gold though. If you get this out of here. If you had started twerking, my guy, you would have won. I don't know what place you came in, but if you'd twerked, you would have won. Halfway through into number 5, Buff Helpy. Okay, this may not be a cosplay, but Buff Helpy is probably the most disturbing non-cosplay character I can really include on this list. If you didn't already know, Buff Helpy is a meme that was created on a Daco FNAF meme review video and has ever since been haunting him and the rest of the community. Don't get me wrong, okay? I love Helpy. But this Buff Helpy meme has generated a whole load of Buff FNAF character ideas, and it terrifies me now. There's nowhere is safe from these creations. If you look up any character, you're bound to find a buff version of them at some point. You just need to scroll down enough, okay? It's one of the rules of the internet, okay? Same thing with what happens to Chica. But no matter what, this is just some psychological torment that I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, actually. But I'm talking about it because, like, it's Halloween, and the world is currently my worst enemy, so if I have to look at this thing on a regular basis when I'm writing these goddamn lists, you have to look at it for this one number, okay? One number. That's all I ask. And at 4, Nightmare. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Nightmare is the scariest animatronic from the games, hands down. This guy will get me every time, and it's one of those reasons I just refuse to play FNAF 4. The other is Nightmare Fredbear, but at least I don't have to deal with them in real life, right? They're only a nightmare character created in the mind of a coma patient in a video game, right? Well, guess again. Thanks to Bundy Creations on Amino Apps, we get both Nightmare and Nightmare Fredbear. Ironically, Nightmare Fredbear is played by their twin sister. And I mean, it's ironic because, well, Elizabeth Afton is sometimes presumed to be Crying Child's twin sister. Anyway, these absolute hulking costumes are going to make me drop a load of my pants. Like, if I saw this in real life, holy crap. Like, imagine actually living in a house that is at least kind of laid out like the one from FNAF 4. And then your kids want to play a prank on you. My grandparents' house is kind of laid out like this. It's not as simple as just 2 halls on either side of the room. But like, they have their the master bedroom does have 2 doors. So theoretically, that's something that can be reenacted there. I don't want to do that. No. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Glitchtrap. We know my issue with Glitchtrap, alright, okay? We know that I just want to watch William Afton burn and then leave him there permanently, hence why I'm wearing the costume. But I want him to actually be in hell and then stay there while we move on with another killer or something else in the series. Please, for God's sake, Scott. I hate this always comes back thing that he's got going on. And despite being dressed as purple guy, I want William dead. So, when I saw this frighteningly realistic looking Glitchtrap costume, my nerves hit an all-time high. I think the sheer simplicity of the Glitchtrap suit is certainly something that makes this a creepy costume, since the stitches are very accentuated here. They're very clear on this version. Like, it might be like the higher contrast than like the actual suit in the games, because like you know that they're there, but you can't really tell. But like, either way, this is creepy. Plus, again, it's another version of William goddamn Afton, who already haunts my nightmares. So what the heck? Zombunny Creations, again, on Twitter this time. Why do you gotta do this to me? Huh? Why? Bro? And ultimately, in at number 2, Twisted Freddy. Holy ever living hell, okay? This is a horrific masterpiece that I could only hope to achieve. This full body Twisted Freddy costume is probably one of the most horrific FNAF costumes I've ever seen. Especially because I believe that the twisted animatronics are probably the scariest version of the animatronics present in the novels, and a solid tie for the scariest animatronics alongside the nightmare ones from FNAF 4. This is some pretty damn expert craftsmanship if you ask me, though, okay? This is a full body suit, and it blows my freaking mind. Like, look at this. It would weigh a ton, and it would definitely need a hander, especially if my clumsy was the one walking around in it, but it straight up looks like if Freddy Krueger were an animatronic. And I mean, I'm not mad about it in the slightest, but like, it's still freaking creepy. So, well done, Deregular Sauce, who is the Twitter user behind this glorious creation. Well done. And finally, in at number 1, Withered Bonnie. This Withered Bonnie cosplay is probably the scariest damn FNAF cosplay I've ever seen. This is incredible and comes from the YouTube user The Nick of Time. At first, I legitimately thought that this was CGI instead of an actual costume, but lo and behold, it was just an insane costume. Glowing eyes and seemingly actually aluminum parts, and a chest that opens up that you can push it out with your other hand, which is honestly actually a decent scare. Frankly, in the video I was kind of taken aback when they did that, so in real life I'm sure that it was results in at least a bit of a jump scare, but this kind of thing always impresses the hell out of me, because like the closest I've come to making a full costume was when I helped someone work on one of theirs. But that's the closest I've gotten. Hey, I made like a lightning bolt for the chest, and I made paper cup, like bracers, that's about it. This is hella impressive to me. I don't understand how people do this. In at 10, animatronics. We can joke all we want about how Afton has a hardcore bloodlust in this series, but his desire for human destruction has been there since the start. Thanks to the fast facts found in FNAF AR's files, we learned that the Funtime robots, the ones used in Sister Location, were actually some of the first robots Afton ever made. Not exactly the first, but among the first. And that they were built with special containment chambers inside to store away items, which we all know is code for children's storage tanks, which we see the Funtimes actually have in their blueprints from FNAF 6. So this means that Afton has been wanting to kill kids since before his kids had died. Hell, even maybe before his kids were born, depending on the timeline. Which at this point is as simple as my feelings for Vanessa, which is not simple at all. If anyone like cosplays Vanessa, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. Possibly killed wife. This hasn't been confirmed as of yet, so it's currently not canon. Many people still consider William Afton offing his wife to be the story of her demise, even though technically we know nothing about her, and she could still be alive for all we know. Many people consider her to have died in either a car crash or because William killed her, and those are like the most common thoughts on the matter. Although her dying in a car accident thing came from like a FNAF original music video that was probably using Minecraft characters that is in no way canon to the series. Like, I've had people yell at me in my DMs telling me that it's canon that she died in a car accident, but no, it's not. It's not even canon that she died, really, but the potential is still there that William was the reason she kicked the animatronic parts filled bucket. Since it's only a possibility though, it's only number 9. If it gets confirmed, I'm more than willing to bump it up higher, because like statistically speaking, your spouse is the person most likely to kill you, so she should have been on her guard. And it ain't missing children's incident. I mean, this is a fairly low-hanging fruit since it's like the inciting moment for the whole series, but I think it's worth calling out at least number 8. The missing children's incident, in case you forgot, is the infamous incident where 5 kids go missing inside of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and are never seen again. Police investigated but were never able to find the bodies, thus they had to let their suspect, in this case William Afton, go due to a lack of evidence. However, this is one of the most horrifically painful moments that you can think of, especially if you're a parent yourself. 5 families went into Freddy Fazbear's wanting their kids to have the time of their lives in 1985, but left without their favorite people. They had the time of their lives, alright. It just so happened to also be the end of their lives. And not only that, but Afton ends up getting away with it since the police were terrible at their jobs or were getting paid off. Still not sure which one is the case in this series, but the missing children's incident is one of the most messed up things to ever happen in this series, but without it we wouldn't have the series. At least it's all fake, right? And at 7 stored his daughter. While we know Afton isn't the best father, I think it's something else to end up locking your robot possessed by the soul of your dead daughter into an animatronic testing facility. That seems a bit too far if you ask for my humble opinion. But nevertheless, he still did it, and that's what Sister Location is all about. And William was even the one who sent us as Michael down there in the first place, and then we get shoved full of Ennard bits so that they can escape. Did William know about that plan? Unsure, because like in FNAF 6, Baby says that she'll make her dad proud. So was that William's intention to like send us down there so Baby could get out? And if that was the case, why lock her down in there in the first place? I mean, like if she was your daughter, why not have her just like chill around the house, right? Like in the books, Baby is able to transform between Baby and like a human looking animatronic at will. So why not add this to that version, and then you can have your daughter back, albeit a little more messed up. But like more like you in the long run, right? I don't know. This family is messed the hell up, and nothing makes sense. And at 6, lied about Remnant. Now, this isn't confirmed, much like the fact that he possibly killed his wife. However, this seems like the most likely explanation to me. So if you want a full explanation as to why I think Afton was the one who lied about Remnant, go check out that video linked up in the iCard. But I'm going to wrap this up quickly here. Basically, there have been 3 fires so far that were meant to finish off William Afton, and none of them have worked. The reason Henry tried fire was because that's supposed to be the thing that can burn off Remnant. However, Remnant can also be found in liquid form, so how can it be molten but also be burnt by fire? It makes more sense that William made up the lie that he could be killed by fire, so Henry would keep trying and failing to kill him, so he wouldn't have to worry about actually dying, since literally every time he's been caught in a fire, he has survived. And the other animatronics infused with Remnant also survived, like Baby, the puppet, and Ennard in FNAF 6, as we see from the blob in Security Breach. Halfway through into number 5, Vanessa. Possessing Vanessa was certainly one of the more messed up things that William did. It just sounds weird, you know? Like this guy pops up into your VR headset, then takes over your body without your consent, so now you end up killing for him. That's kinda messed up. Actually, no, not kind of, that's incredibly messed up. I mean, she knows what's going on too. She actively talks in hushed tones about how she can't talk about it to her therapist. So like, what the hell is the dynamic here? I mean, possessing someone is already pretty messed up, but then causing them to make a rabbit costume so you're still a furry is a whole other set of kinks that I don't even want to talk about. And then, she knows that there's an evil inside her, but she can't do anything about it. She fears for her life, which only makes me wonder what William has been saying to her, and she's now, with full knowledge of her darker half, willing to lock a kid in a lost and found room until the police arrive, despite never calling the police, and then lets that darker half track him down. And at 4, later that night. The Midnight Motorist minigame seems simple enough, but the true horror of this minigame comes from the implications of it, since in the game files the minigame is known as Later That Night. Most people akin the game to what happened after William kills Charlotte outside Fredbear's Family Diner in FNAF 2's Take Cake minigame. But if this is true, this is probably one of the scariest moments in all of FNAF history. This man just killed someone, but then goes home to his kids, reprimands his son and abuses him by locking him in his room so much that he had to break his window to escape. Plus, think of all the people driving past him, unaware of the violent crime that he had just committed. It's scary because this is the case in the real world too. Technically speaking, anyone we encounter can be a serial killer. And that is a horrific thought, since also you're only alive because everyone you've ever encountered has chosen not to kill you, which only makes the whole anyone could be a serial killer thing even worse. And in this case, this man literally just killed someone and then comes home and is going to yell at his son who's been in his room all day. Like, god damn, bro, how much residual anger do you have suppressed inside your body? Getting close to the end, in at number 3, stuffed. One of the most deranged things that William Afton did was stuff the bodies of the original 5 missing children into the original 5 animatronics: Bonnie, Foxy, Freddy, Chica, and Golden Freddy. And the craziest part is that he didn't get caught for it. Yeah, he didn't. The animatronics smelt like death, started leaking blood and other fluids, and the police didn't bat an eye. He put these bodies in animatronics that perform for other kids and their parents every single day. How does anyone think that that's a good idea? Unless it was his way of displaying his kills or something, like some of the crime shows like to mention. How some killers enjoy the world knowing what they did, since it helps them feel more powerful or something, fuels their ego. Like maybe even if they didn't know that the bodies were there, William could be using that as an ego boost, which is messed up. And also ruins the whole he did it because his kids were dying theory, aside from the whole him killing before his kids died thing. Also, how did the police not confiscate the animatronics for evidence? And ultimately, in at number 2, first victim. They say a killer's first victim is the most important, since it usually indicates what got them to start killing or other psychological clues that they could use to predict his next moves. But in the case of William Afton, his first victim was the daughter of his longtime business partner Henry, which is hella messed up because she was 3 at the time, that time being 1983. And this is the year that Afton's life started going downhill in the worst ways possible. He starts killing off kids and then sticks with that MO throughout the rest of his criminal career. But the fact that his first victim was someone who trusted him, who didn't exactly suspect him even though her father did, is something even I fear. I'm not a parent, so I can only imagine how this must have felt. And if that was me, I'd be doing a lot more than burning down restaurants in an attempt to put that down. I'd be doing it myself, especially if he had killed my daughter when she was only 3 years old. Like, I can feel the rage brewing and I don't even have someone that I could, in theory, make a daughter with. And finally, in at number 1, killed his kids. The worst thing that Afton has done by far is gotten his own kids killed. Sure, he may not have done it directly, but his actions ended up resulting in all 3 of his kids' demises. Him killing Charlotte got Fredbear's clothes, which resulted in him having to open up Circus Babies, which made him have to dust off Baby and the other fun times, which were designed to kill in the first place. Baby ends up grabbing and crushing Elizabeth, resulting in her possessing the animatronic. He superpowered the jaw of the Fredbear animatronic used in the new Freddy Fazbears, which ends up crushing his youngest son's skull, since that was not a Springlock failure due to all the Springlocks being active, since it was in animatronic mode, not suit mode, so there was nothing to fail, meaning that he had to have been crushed by the power of his jaw. And while you could argue that it was Michael's fault, why would he think that Fredbear's mouth was overpowered? As the suit technician, William knew what was going on and intentionally souped up the jaw power. And then he gets Michael killed when he sends him down to find his sister in sister location, which ends up getting him stuffed with Ennards and then letting himself burn in Pizzeria Simulator. So yeah, William's actions got all 3 of his kids killed just because he had to kill his business partner's daughter.